So today I'm talking about personality integration and how when we look at different aspects of ourselves, we can whether we make the time to reflect or things trigger us enough and we don't know who we are, or we're brave enough to face the unknown and we merge with a new version of ourselves that's carrying us through this next part from wherever we came from. Personality is not necessarily identity. It's not necessarily the self. Could be like a costume, a very inner layer, like an onion. It's not on the outside. It's a deep layer. It often is how we show up in multiple situations, because multiple personality means I'm staying in that superficial outside onion layer. A more core personality would be one that's with me, whether I'm here, there, with you, or her, or them, or him. So that's the idea. So when we integrate personality integration, we're actually getting deeper and deeper into that inner onion, and it's easier to show up as ourselves. It takes less energy because we don't have to go all the way out, then go back into a different one, then go out to another one. I want to share, it could be sort of like I'm giving themes. Okay, so first of all, conversationalist, sensationalist, healthy, accepting, thoughtful, and grateful. Then I have vices, food and weed, rescheduling commitments that don't have deadlines, or others that are involved, overbooking or underbooking, whether work or get away with, not working, crying. Okay, next we have crying often, permission to release, encouraging, grieving, creative. Then we have practical with safety nets, tendency toward controlling the details, hands-on organizing. Then we have breathing, loving, living, bleeding, open heart, willing to make space for everyone, humble and imaginative. Then we have working on trusting divine timing, disliking authority, feeling the need to get more attention and affection. Then we have recognizing a stain on the special tablecloth of the inner order that someone uses only on like Shabbos or holidays, like the sacred, the holy. We can think, how deep is the blemish? Or is it in the eye that is looking? Like if you have a blemish on your eye, then everything you see has the blemish. It's not that anything is actually blemished. Then we have being willing to show up, to let go of outcomes, brave and courageous and wholehearted and faithful. Then we have realist about others' likelihood to disappoint us, mildly embittered in the past at times, struggling with perfectionism, vulnerability for fear of rejection or abandonment. This leaves us to abandon and reject, and also overly obsess about this, which causes tension to build that can explode so strongly that it takes a while or something extreme to repair the rupture. So just in short, because that was kind of a mouthful, the being okay with the fact, being a realist about others, that others will disappoint us, and it could be borderline mildly embittered. So mildly kind of embittered, about a little bitter in the past at times, or like about the past. And that perfectionism is also showing up as someone who's not affected, because of vulnerability or fear of rejection, we end up rejecting, and the fear of abandonment, we end up abandoning. And this sort of tension that we could be abandoned and we're avoiding it no matter what, and then trying not to be bitter, it explodes, and then we sort of lash out, or we reject or abandon, or we feel that way, right? And I want to also process two other aspects here. One is called ghosting and one is called rebirth. Ghosting is officially when somebody who we have become connected to just throws us away, disappears. A lot of times this affects the personality. That's why I'm talking about it, because somebody who just becomes a ghost, they wanted to take up all the space. We made space. They wanted us to share our personality of our deeper core self, and then they were empty. There was no one there. It was all made up. And also processing rebirth. So I think they're related, for me at least, with the situation I'm going to talk about. It's about a year ago that this person named David Schweck, he gave me time and space. For some reason I interpreted it as a painful emptiness and the deep crevices. I didn't want to enjoy it because it felt like a punishment for my ignorance. And I felt like at the time I could be willing to trust him for all the good he did, and that I couldn't lower my pride, and that I couldn't face how messy I was willing to make everything when I didn't get my way. But I also felt reborn, because there was a deep pain that was buried. He felt physically unsafe because of how bristling it made me to start certain sequencing, and it scared him, and he didn't want to believe that I was not redeemable. Like, there was a sense of I wasn't allowed to be myself. I had to try to figure out. So I'm specifically not using the word trauma here, but let's look at how sometimes we get so shocked by reality. Our personality doesn't have the tools for it. It was too much, and our personality was the person that we were showing up in a world where other persons were a certain way. I felt like I was willing to be with him, even though he shut himself in a fortress, and that I'd have to rebuild myself, because regardless of him, I wanted, I wanted to kind of blame him that I felt unlovable and unworthy, but he was kind of helping me, because there was that sense of feeling that he left me then to do it for myself, because without help, I felt like I could idealize him and say, oh, he wanted me to find myself between the love and the hate. But actually, the clothes that I wore when he used to try to touch me, they felt like they became impure, like what we call in Hebrew tuma. He held me when I was wearing clothes, or like when he tried to massage my feet when I was wearing socks. And I felt like I had to go get immersion. Like, I needed to be cleansed. And I did, actually, eventually. But, what was I saying? There was this need I had, I wanted to climb on someone, like someone stable. And then it was so damaging to my trust that all of a sudden the person that I thought was, stable and reliable and I could, climb on them disappeared. They weren't willing to be climbed on. They weren't willing to exist. The personality that they had was not a core personality. It was a superficial crust, and they could leave it there and then disappear, and suddenly there was no one in there. Oops, sorry, my shirt was going up. And then we talk about rebirth, processing rebirth. So the old world couldn't work. It's a new world now. Unlovability and worthlessness cannot exist anymore in the way that they could in the old world and the way that they do in the new world. Because we cannot forget what the old world was like, where it was normalized to abuse or lash out or harass or overly criticize, violate boundaries, tolerate disrespect, verbally assault. There was punishing, there was cursing like wishing bad on others. Sorry about my shirt again, just my head was itchy. There's this idea of in the old world killing for pride or control. It's not glorious, it's not necessary. And we have to say anymore, but history has had a lot of wars. And a lot of people died at another person's hand. But the parasite's gone. But every person individually do not have to prove that we're good or misbehave and inflict every time someone sees us as bad. And we certainly we're learning not to exist to others, but to still exist to ourselves. We don't want to be the ghost to anyone else. We want to be existing to ourselves, and then we could show up from that place to others. And a great way to round this out, I think I was going to sort of end there, but I want to end with a deeper self-connection, pleasure being. We develop sometimes a personality around feeling pleased. People could be a people pleaser, or it could be somebody who someone calls entitled. Either way, it's revolving around the projection, oh, that will please that person. There's still a big emphasis on pleasure, or I'm entitled to pleasure. Why should I be displeased or uncomfortable? So either way, whether it's inside or outside, there's pleasure as an important part of a personality. I wanted to say, let's all work on this to know what brings us pleasure. So I wrote, and instead of just saying food, sex, music, I wanted to go into more detail. So positive words about me, creative and thoughtful. Someone who lets me get away with something because I was in a bad mood, or something little, not something terrible. A foot massage, a soft caressing touch, someone cooking for me, buying me food, preparing food for me, giving me food for later. Someone who calls and texts me regularly, especially good morning or good night, not a day without me. Role-playing and sexual change, giving up power, and other uses it for the good. And then, this is one of our tools, but for self-understanding. So in self-understanding, we're willing to, even briefly, just as a prompt, to understand ourselves based on this deeper version of us that the personality is often protecting or expressing. So I like my alone time, privacy, and quiet. I want a secure certainty, commitment. I want a secure certainty, commitment to me, being chosen, let me test a little bit, studying, learning, growing, reading, writing, producing, a fertile mind. Self-understanding is about needing safety in the familiar, and singing, dancing, body awareness, performing, displaying, designing and organizing, creating and preparing. And finally, my future was so precious, I didn't know. I gave it to people and they didn't have any intention for giving theirs. It was supposed to be sharing. It was supposed to be at my consent, or it's a power vacuum that consumes. So when we give our future away to someone, we plan around them in our future, but they didn't have any intention of planning around us. There was an assumption there was going to be sharing and there wasn't. It ends up that we feel like our consent was taken away because we didn't get the choice to also not plan around them. They made us feel that we were planning together. And that could be like a power vacuum, like it like sucks out the vitality we would have had from our future self if we were actually going in line with our plans. And so how do we end this off? Not having to answer to anyone. How we earn our money, how we spend it, how we dress or change our appearance, where we live and with who, what we read, watch, or listen to, what we eat, when we eat, how we clean our house, body, and environment, how clean they are. If we drink alcohol, smoke weed, who we spend time with or when we spend time with them, who we listen to, who we accommodate, who we help, who we support, who we visit, and what time we wake up and go to bed, what we talk about and with who, and how often we're on the phone, and how often we're available on it, and to whom, and if we bike or walk or take public transportation, and where we want to go and for how long, and who we allow to touch us or know us. And so in all of this, we can process and integrate our most stable personality and I'd love to share one more thing. I think I have the time. One last thing, to withhold judgment. So like to be satisfied in perspective, like it doesn't need to be baggage or bad yet. Like, let's just see what it is. Basically, in other words, how do we have a personality that's a stable, reliable personality, but one that we could like live with, being a personality that we're willing to live with? The same way I said, like, we don't have to answer to anyone. Could we be someone that people don't have to answer to? So like not orbiting around anyone else's schedule or values or rules or code, learning on our own from our own choices and experiences, clarity, seeing the dark, the problems, able to be less clouded by the emotions around abandonment and rejection, feeling that being alone doesn't always mean we're not wanted or chosen, but that it's time to evolve and less impactful evolutions. Having a lot of peace and quiet time, stillness and silence where there's no one around. It could feel emptier. There's so much room and space, but we're not always exactly sure how and what we're supposed to do with it. But we also don't have to know the other. We don't have to be able to understand or be with, or, we don't have to be prevented from I to I, like me to me, like we to we, I to I, really like I, like EYE, I to I, one to one. The ratio angle isn't matching with alignment. The timing, rate, pace can vary with the information that exchanges. So doesn't have to be like something that's not matching. And finally, wanting without needing, needing without wanting, not letting the mind get ahead of us as a separate entity or behind us, as if it knows what could have or will happen. So not getting stuck in these possibilities that never occurred. And this is all of this, like to be satisfied in perspective and understand ourselves, and to process our rebirth and when we've experienced ghosts in terms of integrating our personality. Okay, bye.